And I have my chat popped out. Yay! I did it.
I don't see you live yet. Let me.
I will be in a second, I'm sure.
There we go.
Just literally saw myself.
Okay.
Hey everybody. How are y'all doing this week? We're doing better. I think we're doing better, right?
Yes.
Have some people coming in. I see a couple of you. Opal says hello. Hi, Opal. Thank you for joining us. I like that name.
Opal?
Yeah, I like opals too. When I was a kid, everyone told us that opals were like bad unless you were born in October. Really? Yeah. People who aren't born in October are not supposed to wear opals. Makes no sense to me at all. Ruth says hi. Hi, Ruth. How are you doing? Ewu says hi. Hi. Frankie says hello. Hello, Frankie. So yes, we have a couple people that have decided to come in and participate and join us all. Pillars of Light says, hey guys, I've been binge watching your channel recently. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. We always appreciate the support and that we're putting out information that people are interested in watching. So it's always a surprise to us. The whole thing has been a surprise to us from the beginning. So, hey, you're the reason why we do this. You guys keep encouraging us. It's all your fault.
Well, and it seems like that's the best way for something to grow anyway, rather than too much constraint and, you know.
Or planning, or.
Yeah, too much planning and you restrict your choices.
Yeah, then you're not genuine.
Yeah.
Violet says hi. Hi, Violet. Moonfire Dawn says hello. Glad to hear you're doing better. Thank you very much. Violet says he 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 he. Pillars of Light says loved your video on portals. Thank you. See, I do these videos. People ask me to do something more on the subject because a lot of times, I mean, I was really shocked when someone asked me to do a video on how to use a magic wand, and I'm like, I haven't done that. I could have sworn that that's what I was doing all along, but apparently not. So yes, so we always try to listen to all of your what your interests are, where they are, and so forth, and try to cover subjects as we can. Violet says, I enjoyed your emotional one. Thank you. You're welcome. That was a shock to me. And I think I figured out what happened. I think I'm going through an anniversary episode because my son moved up here. So this is from when he was born and just before he was born and all of the events that happened around him. I think is what triggered that when I was talking. It's like I just didn't realize how close to the surface all that was, and still I started thinking about things, and yeah, so it's interesting. Shadow work. Granddaughter's starting to do some shadow work now, so this is good. She's starting to realize. Apparently we learned this week, surprise to us, that her father has been telling her that we don't care about her, that we're horrible people, that we're hateful and despicable and unfeeling and all this other stuff. So she's finally figured out the reason she's here is not because we don't care about her. So this is a good thing. So Pillars of Light says, I'm an Irish pagan and paranormal investigator. Hey, welcome to the club. I have a huge issue with ghost hunters and their stats on portals and demons, etc. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Angela says, hi Siofra and chat. Hey Violet, how things for everyone today? Violet says, good today. Yeah, I have a lot of issues with ghost hunters in general and how everything is a demon. Of course, they are coming in with their own perception of reality and their own prejudices, so they're not really investigators in my opinion, because if you've already formed your opinion about whatever it is you're going to meet, how can you actually see or feel what's actually there? Because you've put up your filters ahead of time, and then you're going to interpret all that information based upon your own prejudices and worldview. But Angela says that guy sounds like a jerk telling your granddaughter that. Yeah, that's her father. That's her father telling her that, and she is learning how to deal with toxic family, which we talked about a little bit last week. Somebody was talking about how they were cutting off relations with toxic family members and how difficult it can be. And she has struggled with that. She keeps trying to help, and it's pointless. Angela says, I hate how they go in there disrespectful and then wonder why the ghosts are like, get out. Yeah. I'd choose someone from my house too if they were being rude.
I agree.
Yeah. They still have feelings. They may not have a body, but feelings are still around, so one should consider that. Vanessa V says, hello everybody. Hi Vanessa V. How are you doing? Haven't seen you in a little bit, I think. Although I never remember. I'm terrible. But I think it's been a couple weeks anyway.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So.
I love it when she's here. She participates really well. Everyone does. All you guys do a great job helping keeping us focused on, things and whatnot. But yeah, life is like that. And we have huge changes coming. I'm closing my massage office. So tomorrow we start moving all my stuff out and trying to figure out where we're going to put it, what it's going to be, where it's going to be, and so forth. And then I get that surgery in 2 weeks on my foot. So I'm thinking, yeah, I need to get the clothes off my floor so I don't fall down if I have to get up in the middle of the night. I was thinking about that last night. I'm like, okay, apparently this is now on my list of things I must do before I have surgery. Like, But yeah. Yep. And it's that time of year too for this. And Mercury just went direct today, and I think that Saturn and Pluto are going to go direct this month as well. So some things are clearing up, but it's certainly been an intense time. Vanessa V says, oh, thank you. Yes, I went on a trip last week, so I couldn't make it. All right. Welcome back. Angela says, it's hard to accept people won't change. I wasted too much time waiting for toxic people to change, but once I realized there was no turning back. Yeah. That's the hard thing to remember or realize. Violet says, you cracked me up, Siofra. I'm always laughing over here.
Yeah, laughing is good.
Yes, laughing is good. Good medicine.
Good for your health. Yeah.
Yes, it's good for all your things. Pillars of Light says, the Irish have a unique view on the paranormal. There's a strong belief in the fairies, the Sidhe, which are assumed to be responsible for most activity in Ireland. Yeah, they also have some prejudices against the Sidhe, unfortunately, but that's because they got that from other religions that kind of fed into the myths and stories that they already had and targeted them more negatively, let's say. Vanessa V says, my dad and I went to visit his family in El Salvador, and we were also lucky that we got to liberate some turtles. That's wonderful. I'm so glad. And I'm so glad you missed the giant hurricane that hit the U.S. and Florida and that it didn't hit El Salvador. So yay. Angela says, Fae are awesome. Oh, and speaking of the Fae, Ian had a piece of glitter show up on his sandwich the other day. And we don't have glitter in the house. Just an FYI. It's a brand new loaf of bread and making a sandwich and sitting down and right in the middle of it, nice piece of glitter. It was orangish, wasn't it?
Yep.
It was an orange glitter. And we're like, where does this come from? And Ashley's been having that too. She keeps having glitter show up all over the place. She's like, where is all this coming from? Violet thinks that's funny. Glitter on a sandwich, yeah. Angela says, I don't have many Fae encounters in my home. If it starts to happen, it'll happen. One odd encounter, they knocked a statue of mine over. They apologized for it. Well, good. I'm glad they apologized for it. And Angela laughs and says, glitter is for spell work, abundance, and hex work. Okay.
I'll buy that.
And fairies just like it, apparently. I mean, I had a skin exam, like a full body skin exam. I was very careful to like take a bath before because they're going to look at all my skin, right? They found glitter between my toes. And I have no clue. Like, whoa. So Luna says, hi all, how are you, Siofra and Ian? We're doing better.
Good.
And, dealing with changes and etc. And Ian was great when I broke down emotionally after I made the last video. I ended up losing it for a couple of hours. It had a lot to get out. But he's good. He knows what to do. He just hugs me. What do you need? It's like the perfect response from a partner, in my opinion.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Angela says glitter is good for both because it never leaves. Edible glitter never leaves. Edible glitter is the best for your magic, though it can go in your tea and food. It's just shiny sugar. Oh. I don't think I've ever seen edible glitter.
Yeah. I'm sure they have it.
I'm sure they have it,
things,
yeah. Moonfire Dawn says, it's nice hearing witches discuss ghost hunting. My pet peeve, the ghost hunters that blame the haunting on witches. Oh, yeah, I know. I like that one. Like, dude, that pentagram could have been put there for protection to limit haunts. No kidding. Angela says, perhaps they're blessing you with abundance for your transition because I don't think they'd hex you. Yeah, I'm not worried about being hexed by fairies. Yeah, that's definitely not something that concerns me at all, so it must be something good. I think they're just saying, hi, here we are, here's a piece of glitter, isn't it shiny? And they know me, I'm like a crow that way. Anything that glitters is like, oh, look, sparkles. And I get easily distracted. So Angela says, edible glitter is found in the cake section at craft stores. Okay, if I need some edible glitter, I will know where to look. I figure that's probably where they would be. Bep says, hi, here Ian, you want some mayo? Luna says, your video brought a few tears to my eyes. I was calling out for Jonathan to console me, which he did. Well, I'm sorry that it made you cry, but I'm not surprised, which is why I put the warning on there, because you're a human and an empath, and that would be a normal reaction. And I'm glad Jonathan was there for you. Opal says, I have a lot of that glitter and shimmery mica powders for epoxy resin projects. It does get everywhere in my house. Well, I know someone who does epoxy. A couple of people, actually, who do epoxy resin. Anna says, they saw the sandwich and were like, yeah, so we're going to claim this as an offering, and that's ours now. Yummy.
Well, in that case, I better apologize because I ate it.
Well, the thing is that spirits take the virtue that they need out of it before you eat it, and then you don't waste it, you eat it. That's what they do in Indonesia, because they offer all of their food to the household deities before they consume them, and they give them a specified period of time, and they say, okay, so you're now done with our food, now we will eat what's left over. So that's the way that works. Angela says, virtual group hugs for Siofra and Ian in chat. Thank you. We appreciate that. We appreciate the encouragement. And, being vulnerable is definitely a risk, I guess, especially on the internet. And so I really appreciated everybody's response. I'm always anxious when something like that happens. Understandably, considering my history.
There are people out there who like to poke at anybody, so...
This is true, unfortunately. Angela says, that's how I give food offerings. I eat it like a communion. Yep. It makes sense to me. Perfect sense. Well, I actually apparently was the cause of what people considered a major haunting in Canada. And it was pretty funny. They found a 6-pointed star in the attic because I was trying to draw a 5-point star and I measured it very carefully and did it wrong. And there was a ghost there, and they decided that star was part of the problem, which is hysterically funny to me. And they kept trying to paint over it, and it would keep coming back, and
seep through the paint.
Yeah, it was
because they weren't sealing it first.
Probably. I don't know. Luna says, edible glue and edible glitter, I work with them on a regular basis, being a cake maker by trade. We also use luster dust, which is effectively glitter dust, which literally gets everywhere. Yes.
Sounds like a bad substance for a practical joker to have.
Oh, no kidding. Angela says,
Giant glitter dust
I let them
bombs.
take first, invite my deities and spirits to dinner, snack, and tea, sit and talk with them, and then drink and eat the offering. I don't like leaving food on the altar. My dog might knock everything over trying to get it if I do. Yes. Angela says, I heard six-pointed stars are called fey stars. Well, actually, I think it's a seven-pointed star that's considered the fairy star. And six-pointed is the Jewish hexagram. Is that right? Yeah. And sometimes people, when they see like the pentagram, they think it's a hexagram and ask me if I'm Jewish, which is obviously shows how little they know about Judaism. So that says, let it out, Siofra. We're holding space here. Thank you. Angela says, that is why glitter is for spell work. Pillars of Light says, it's believed to be bad to consume any perishable offerings after its essence, goodness, was taken by the spirits, gods, she, etc., after which I'll dispose it by throwing it outside or in the can. Well, see, it depends on your culture.
Yeah, Hindu.
Because in Indonesia, it is a standard practice. Everybody eats the food after they've given the offerings, and it's considered wasteful to not take it back.
In India, that's usually done. A lot of times the priests and things will eat the offerings, or
Yeah.
yeah.
And so a lot of these things are dependent upon your cultural expectations, trainings, mythologies, things that you absorb. They're not necessarily universal rules. I mean, if that's the way it is for you, then that's the way it is for you, and you wouldn't want to change that unless you went in and changed all the ways you thought about stuff.
And it might specifically depend on particular groups, also because different beings from different cultures will have different, they may have different likes or dislikes and things which are kind of built in that you have to work with also.
Yeah. And I just got, see, I was on my Facebook page, and one of my friends was posted this wonderful, lovely thing about the Arisha Oya. And I thought it was lovely. It was a nice description of her. And so I let this person know that I was at Bimbe once, and I was ridden by her. And then he's like, but have you been crowned? Like, and I'm like, no, I wasn't a member of the religion or the spiritual path. I just, she just decided she wanted me, and she did, and that's what happened. And he's like, but that's not supposed to happen. It's like, I'm sorry. I don't know why it happened to me, but it did. And Ian says, well, maybe no one told the Orishas they had to follow these rules, and they just decide to do what they want. And I thought, yeah, that makes sense. Because a lot of times it's our assumptions that we're dealing with, not actual metaphysical, paranormal reality. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting anyway. So Angela says, is it safe to let Ian near edible glitter?
Yes, that made me laugh when I read
Yeah.
it.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know either. That's what made me laugh.
And Pillars of Light says, it's a cultural thing. Yes, which is what I said too. Vanessa V says, or you could also ask the fairies or deities you leave the offerings to. Yeah, what they want. It might depend upon them. JD says, what is a good way to start getting acquainted with your spiritual court? Meditate. Quieting your mind so that you can hear the voices that aren't yours that are there, and start to tell the difference between your inner voice and an external inner voice. I know sounds like an oxymoron, but it's not.
Yeah, you can learn to differentiate.
There is a very distinct difference between the two voices that as you get more and more acquainted with your own thought processes and how your thoughts feel, sound, taste, whatever, then when that other voice comes in, it just is like, oh, that's not me. And that's how you start developing those relationships. Yeah. The only way that I know of to do it effectively. So Angela says, I did ask my spirits how I should do it since I wanted to do it that way. They helped me arrange a way that worked for both of us. Cool. Adela says, a six-pointed star is also called the Star of David. I'm a Jew witch. Well, yeah. Angela says, a little prayer and chatter first and then eat. It helps me slow down since I eat quickly. Ah. And you can, we often charge up our food. Ian was charging up a container of oatmeal this morning since I, put it in a large container. So he's charging up all of it. And then every day he'll charge it up a little bit more. So that way we have charged oatmeal for breakfast to help us be healthy.
That's right.
Stay well, whatever. There's lots of things you can do with food.
Harmonious. It was harmonious this morning.
Ah, you put harmoniousnesses in it.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Harmony with everything. Universal harmony.
Universal harmony. I like that.
Harmony within you.
Yes, with your body and your processes
Yep.
and your mind and your thoughts and your feelings and all that. Sounds good. Cool.
Thought that sounded like a tasty thing to put in oatmeal.
Angela says, I charge up peppermints into brain food on the altar sometimes. That would work too. I mean, you can charge it up with whatever you need. And, it's like if you have a specific need, you can charge it up with that. Angela says, I also have charged my cough drops with extra healing energy. Yeah, I'm going to suck on it anyway. Might as well, right? Get some extra oomph in there to help with the cough. Why not? And that's the thing I like. Kenny says, hi there, Siofra and Ian. Hi, Kenny. How are you? And, so.
Yeah, that's right there in Barton's first chapter.
Is charging up food?
Charging up food to influence yourself. Make a change.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're thinking a certain way about what you're doing, then that's going to have a specific effect because, you've changed how you're thinking about it to start with, and now you're focused on it in a different manner. And so that way, it's going to get more into your subconscious, which is the place that is always doing things a lot of times that we're not aware of. So
it also makes it much more effective if you focus on that while you're eating it. Focus on absorbing it, absorbing that energy to where it's supposed to go.
Kenny says, I'm okay. Starting to get a bit of a cold. I'm sorry. Colds are no fun. Apparently we're talking about coughs up above with cough drops. So apparently you need to do what Angela does and charge up your cough drops to help with getting rid of your cold and doing whatever else you need to do in order to recover and stay as healthy as possible during the process. Viruses, they're just sometimes mean. But yeah, so. Angela says, charge some cinnamon candy with healing energy. Well, that's if you like cinnamon candy.
Well, I love cinnamon candy.
He likes, I don't. It's like, it's too hot for me. I like cinnamon sugar on my toast. That's okay with me, but not the candy. Angela says, I love cinnamon candy and tea when I don't have cough drops.
Well, I found out by one of those little tiny bottles, it turns out I love cinnamon whiskey. Which is a strange thing. But I always liked hot stuff anyway, so that was a surprise to me, those cinnamon whiskey.
And Vanessa V says ginger is great too. I do eat ginger. I've got some candied crystallized ginger that I take during the day to help with my thyroid, give me energy. And I know ginger is really good for moving energy through the body. That's something they use in Chinese medicine a lot to move the qi. And so ginger tea is really good for that kind of thing as well. When Angela says fireball. Not me. I stay away from the fireballs.
Yeah, I don't know, it's been so many years since I've had one. They might be too intense for me anymore. I can't eat nearly the hot stuff I used to, though I still want it. My body just doesn't like it.
Adela says, I love ginger candy. Sometimes I have too much. Angela says, the only liquor drink I ever drink is salted caramel Bailey's hot chocolate. Ooh.
Sounds nice.
I like chocolate. Tastes like a salted Werther's melted down in chocolate. Yeah, I would like that. When I was doing alcohol, I always liked the flavored things like cocoa and coffee flavored stuff. But I don't like the sensation I get from alcohol, so I tend not to drink any at all at this point.
It's odd that I don't drink basically much at all because I have no desire for alcohol. But I also found out that I liked through one of these little taster bottles, uh, jalapeno whiskey, or it was vodka, jalapeno vodka.
Mm.
And it actually, somehow the jalapeno took some of the edge off the alcohol taste. I don't know, it was an interesting combination. Sorry.
And Joy says, sounds yummy. Pillars of Light says, whiskey works well for getting rid of the cold. It certainly can help you feel better while you're having it. And some of them are very medicinal. Angela says, I did make peppermint lavender vodka for my matrons once. Never tasted it. Okay, but I steeped the mint and lavender in water and added it to a large glass of nice vodka. Well, certainly alcohol has been used throughout the centuries for religious purposes and rituals and things like that.
In India, wine is one of the ones given to Kali a lot of the times, from what I've read.
Yeah, in the Santeria and Voodoo, it's the rum.
Yeah.
A lot of times, spray rum.
A lot of times, rum in a cigar.
Yeah. Moonfire Dawn says, I love cinnamon. Hot damn, 100 almost ruined me for it. It's 100 proof and tasted like candy. Rough night, but I have forgiven the booze.
Yep, I just had a little quantity, so.
Opal says, I can't remember what it's called, but there is a hot cinnamon premium liquor that's got gold flakes in it.
Oh, that sounds expensive.
No
Fancy.
Kidding. And very fancy. Angela says, added the water, not the herbs. All right. So, let's go on to something other than alcohol at this point. We must have other subjects we can talk about. I'm sure there's some questions out there. Goldschlager is what it's called, okay. Now I need a cup of tea, maybe a spicy chai.
Yeah, chai sounds good. Moment.
Usually sweet wine like pink Moscato counters anything spicy, Opal says. Me, I'm a lightweight when it comes to alcohol. My body can't tolerate it. But then there's a lot of things my body doesn't tolerate. I respond very quickly to what I put in my body. And so I'm not as much of a canary in the coal mine as some people are, but I'm definitely on that spectrum of things. So my doctor has to really work with me to find out what things I can take that are Western medicine kind of stuff. Because some I can tolerate and much I cannot. Angela says, haha, perhaps this came up because the spirits had a day when they feel like a drink. Yep. That old joke, I probably make my guardian angel drink and have a cigar with my behavior.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Kenny says, I have a dream catcher above my bed. I charged it up, but I still have nightmares. Am I doing something wrong?
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay then.
Vanessa made me laugh.
Vanessa did.
Yeah, sorry.
So let's think here about dream catchers. I'd keep charging it up, but if you're still having nightmares, the best thing you can do is figure out why you're having nightmares. I mean, doing the dream work can help get rid of nightmares. Traditionally speaking, a nightmare is there to give you a rather important message, and if it's tried to give you this message in other ways and you haven't been listening, then it amps up the ante, as it were, to make it more and more obvious. So I would do some journaling and work with the images that you're having and see if you can figure out what it is the dream is trying to tell you. It could be a message that you need to get. And if that's the case, using a dream catcher may short circuit that process. Yeah, so, I mean, nightmares aren't necessarily bad in and of themselves. They're uncomfortable and frightening, but they're not necessarily bad in the sense that it's your unconscious trying to throw something back in your face.
Yeah, thoughts and fears and things that you don't.
And if you're doing like
really
shadow
process.
work, that could explain it. Because a lot of times you don't know what's hiding in the corners of your own mind and your own unconscious. until you start to try and open up a couple of doors, and then things will start leaking out and start coming up, to get attention, to bring them into the light of day. In some cultures, one of the things to do with a nightmare is to do a lucid nightmare and enter into the dream and then face down whatever the nightmare is, the monster or the scary thing in the dark or what have you, and take control of the dream and then turn it into an ally. So without knowing more, it's just general information I'm spewing out at the moment. But yeah, but if you think it's like coming from somewhere else, you might want to put up other things, not just a dream catcher. So you could like change your dream environment, like adding certain crystals under your pillow, for example. A lot of times I put different crystals under my pillow if I'm trying to get a specific kind of energy in my body or in my mind when I'm going to sleep, if I feel I need it. Like this is a piece of Larimar, which is supposed to give happy thoughts and have happy energy. It just sort of makes you feel kind of joyful when you hold it. I often put a piece of selenite under my pillow to bring in that light energy to sort of brighten things up, energetically speaking, and clear out anything that might be trying to clog up the works. So that would be some of the things I can think of off the top of my head that might be helpful. So Vanessa V said we can just mix the edible glitter with the alcohol and give it to the fairies. That might be what they want. Pillar's Light says beer makes a great offering to the Irish gods based on the folklore. Angela says perhaps the nightmares are important somehow. I rarely have a nightmare, so I pay attention to it when I do. Kenny says it's nightmares about my abusive family, so you might be doing some shadow work then and trying to work through the influences and things like that that they've placed in you, because I've had those nightmares. And yeah, so hopefully that means you're also in therapy if you're having nightmares about abusive family. If you're not, I suggest you get into therapy to try and work through some of those issues and get some external support for what you're going through. And it says, has anyone had any experience or have any thoughts of a huge panther emerging from a black fog? I had the weirdest experience last night. I went outside with my dog at 11 p.m. for him to go to the toilet, and everything suddenly felt weird. I'm skipping a few messages here. I'm going to go back. It went deathly silent and still, which is unusual as I'm on a very busy road, and I saw a mental image of a huge black panther emerging from the black fog. It felt like it was going to come in my house. I was firm in nothing coming in, and it didn't. Once I'd been inside for a few minutes, everything went back to normal. Well, that sounds like a pretty intense experience.
Yeah.
And it could be an attempt to connect with you, a power animal, maybe trying to connect with you and making itself known. It may not be a danger, could just be overwhelming. But setting boundaries is important, and that sounds like you did the right thing, because it should be on your terms if you're going to like have an encounter with it. If you want to find out more about it, set up some kind of a circle and an altar and a sacred space around yourself so you feel confident, and then maybe see what you can get from the encounter and see if it has something to offer, because things that are big and scary aren't necessarily there to be hazardous to you. I mean, some of the things that I've met definitely could have been hazardous if I wasn't paying attention, but they weren't inimical. They weren't trying to cause trouble. It was just the fact that their energy was so intense, it kind of is overwhelming. So, all right. So Butterfly Magic says, hello folks. Hi Butterfly Magic. Angela says, oh my god, sorry Kenny, that's horrible. Perhaps it's saying that area needs shadow work if you can handle it, or is trying to release it. Butterfly Magic with hot tea says, what are the two blue pillars with brass tops flanking you, Siofra? Oh, I made those. They're PVC pipes. They are fire stations. There's like on the top of them is a brass container that we can fill with alcohol and Epsom salts and light them on fire. I'm in front of my fire altar, the south in my case, and I made them look like lapis because I really liked the idea of stone pillars, and there's no way I could have actual stone pillars. So I looked up some instructions on how to make something that is a piece of plastic look like it's made out of rocks.
They look good and they work good, but then
I won't let him use
she
them.
won't let anybody use them.
Because they're a fire hazard. But that's what they are. And I know they're blue and they're not a fire color, but it doesn't matter. They're mine. I like them. So Angela says, I have charged healing plushies for when I have trouble sleeping. Oh yeah, I think I remember that. Vanessa V says, when I asked about nightmares, you recommended me to sleep with the black tourmaline, and that did help a lot. Yeah, that's right, because that helps to keep negative energy and negative entities away. You're right. Good memory. You never know what's going to come. And Vanessa V said, and the cleansing cup ritual, which is another good thing to help clear out the stuff in your head and so forth, and bring you back to center. Yeah, and we have that video is up on our site, the cleansing cup ritual, transformation cup, I think is what we called it, something like that. We have a setting for, there's one of the lists that's got like all of those kinds of things in it. I can't remember what we called the list though.
Playlist? Yeah.
One of the playlists on our site. Go through the community page and look at the playlists and look through those, and you'll probably find it that way. And you'll find other things you're interested in too, probably. Angela says, fog has been a thing in my tarot cards. Most images have had fog in them, and my ancestors have really been saying, hey. Well, fog is kind of like otherworldly. We had that bizarre fog. We had an otherworldly
cool
fog
fog
happen. It was pretty cool, yeah. We were camping in that place that had tree houses, and we were in a cabin, and we just were going for a walk after dark, and then out of nowhere, all of a sudden, there was this fog everywhere, and it lasted for just a short period of time, and then it went away. It didn't seem to be related to a body of water or anything that would normally make a fog. So I think that is sort of like a portal in itself. You know, people can think of a fog as like a portal because you're entering into like a different kind of a space.
Well, that was an interestingly odd place anyway.
It was. I found some interesting places to take us over the years. Pillars of Light says, I used to wake up in the middle of the night in panic from having nightmares. It was an issue until I adopted a habit of changing the narrative of the nightmare via the imagination. Cool. That's a good idea too. Tanya says, whoa, as I was falling asleep last night, I was on a path and there was a panther or cougar that emerged from the fog. Well, there's a second one. It scared me awake. Wow, okay. Pillars of Light said, wow, half awake asleep. Yeah, changing it. I have a black panther as a spirit animal. So I sometimes have a panther either in my room, kind of hanging out, or in my dreams sometimes too. Vanessa V says, I have a question on a common reincarnation belief, but it's going to take more than one message. Okay. Anna says, thanks, that's what I was thinking. I was freaked out at the unknown rather than the panther. It seemed amenable. It was amusing that it was the 1st of October and spooky season seems to be coming in hot. Yeah, that's for sure. Vanessa V says, so I was wondering, what is the basis for the belief that, or why do some people say that you cannot have been a king or something like that in a past life? I think they say that because so many people think that they were, and there's only a few people who actually were. But I don't see any reason why you couldn't have been. Someone had to be.
No, not technically. Theoretically, I figure that your lives should be improving. In other words, if you're improving yourself each lifetime, each one should be a little better than the last. So that would mean your previous lifetimes were less likely that you were something like that. But I don't see any
Well, that depends on
any
what
reason
kind
it
of
couldn't happen.
king
I
or
mean,
ruler. If they were despotic.
some of the kings were, yeah,
Yeah, definite not nice
were
people.
despicable. So
Right.
yeah.
So I don't know that
So,
you could make a
yeah,
generalization, but
no.
still.
I think that's it mostly. Just like there's a whole bunch of. In fact, at one time, Israel Regardi was going to write a book with maybe Lon Duquette, I think, and he was going to call it Liber Nuts, N-U-T-Z, about all the people who were reincarnations of Crowley.
Oh, I know. And I'm skipping Joy there for a second.
Oh, sorry.
Vanessa V says, I mean, I understand that the probabilities are very low, but I've heard people say that you cannot have been in a better position than in your current life. And that brings up the subject of time.
Well, and what is better?
And what is better?
Is
Time
relative.
is one, an illusion, and all times are happening at the same time. Therefore, there's no way for you to have been better or worse in another life. You've been all of these things simultaneously, if you want to look at it that way. And then the other, of course, is what we were talking about before we saw your message, that just because you might have been in an elevated position in society doesn't mean that it was a better life.
Or that you were happy.
Or yes, or that you were more aware of what you were doing. So, I mean,
You might
that's
have been rich, but it doesn't mean that it made you happy.
Exactly.
Know, or
that's a societal kind of
But yeah, I don't think there's really no prohibitions for that kind of stuff. It's just that you hope you're going upwards and not downwards if you're doing things right in your life. That's all.
But yeah, so
my feeling on it.
So Joy says, I was trying to go into a theta state and saw the gray puffy stuff you guys talked about once. Yeah, the puffy, the gray popcorn is what we called it. Yes. Well, that's good. Bep says, I remember a super spaced out period when I was walking around with half a kilogram of tourmaline in my pockets for protection. Oh, wow. That's a lot of tourmaline. Well, I guess that's only half a pound or less than a half.
Yeah, half a kilogram.
It's still good for you. Yeah. Lulu says, hi, everyone. Hi, Lulu. Adventures of Reika says you can't make that generalization. People make generalizations all the time, but I agree. That's the problem with generalizations.
Yeah, like you cannot have been a king or something. That's
right. I mean, people can spout all the rules they want. For example, the fact that I couldn't have been ridden by the Orisha Oya because somebody wrote down somewhere that that can't happen to someone who's not initiated and not has been claimed by her and not have been planted crowns of crystals in her skull. But it happened anyway. So it's like, rules are things we make up.
The rules are for humans.
We make up a lot of the rules, unless they're like a physics thing, and even those depend on what state you're in. If you're in a quantum state, all the rules are gone.
Yeah, so that's getting a little too meta, because really, you walk out the door and you could trip and fall on your ass and break a leg. I mean, there's no...
No, so Vanessa V says, because you are supposed to evolve, but it doesn't make sense to me because I don't think being in power means you're more evolved. Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
We totally agree. Angela says a lot of royalty was legit crazy. Yeah, not only that, but extremely ill because of inbreeding and
I think a lot of times people who
physically weak and mentally weak, and yes.
The best people to hold the power be the ones that don't want it. So that's kind of a conundrum there.
Yeah. Kenny says, thanks for the advice on the nightmares, by the way. I'm always at work during the live stream, but I get on here always. Well, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. The Adventures of Reiki Iceline says, in spiritual development, worldly progress isn't a factor. Yes, I think we're kind of all on the same page with that. Vanessa V says, hi, you started answering before I even finished. Yeah, that's me. What can I say? Do that a lot, and then I go by and I read and I'm going, oh yeah, okay. So Pillars of Light says the she and the Tuatha De Danann are often mentioned using fog as a means of entry into our world, and that makes sense. And I think that that I think I know that or knew that, and that's why when it happened to us we were quite fascinated by like what was going on. The Adventures of Reiki says, I initiated and was crowned with Oshun, only she was already with me. Someone who actually knows what I'm talking about. Thank you. Because, I mean, the guy's asking me all these questions about it, and it's like, I'm sorry. It's just what happened to me. And only 2 of us were taken during that bimbe I was at, and the other one was the high priestess whose birthday it was, which was the bimbe for her. So I was quite surprised. Angela says one royal autopsy said his head was full of water. He was infertile, his liver was too small, so was one of his kidneys, plus the other problems being a king or queen sounded terrible, honestly. Yeah. And I mean, obviously, the chances are that you were a farmer, a soldier, a slave, um, a mood brewer,
Yep.
a mood
Krishna.
broodmare. My tongue went opposite. Yeah, someone who made babies for men.
Nice.
Broodmare is what I was thinking. I mean, you know, as far as the cultures around the world and around the planet and so forth, those are the most likely positions that any of us are.
Plus, there's just random chance. I'm convinced there's a certain amount of random chance in where you're born, not just.
Not just that you are absolutely picking this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of random chance that happens there too that mixes in. And
Angela says, if anything, they sounded like the people who needed more ascension work. Well, people who are entitled and think that they have nothing to learn, by definition, are the ones who need to work the most.
Yep.
Anybody who thinks they know everything, I already know that they're not very far along. Because the more you learn, the more you don't know. And if you haven't gotten to the point where you realize you don't know everything, it's time to go back to school. And like reevaluate everything that you've done. Because that means ego is just taken over and there's nowhere else to go with that.
Yep.
It's like it's the end of it. So if you want to make progress, you have to go backwards, seemingly, and get rid of all those assumptions.
Should I pop in a coyote quote at that point?
Well, you can if you want.
What?
Sure.
Oh, it went out of my brain. What were we talking about? I'm sorry.
We were talking about knowing everything and think you knowing everything and ego and...
Oh, yeah. What Coyote said is one of the simple ones, but unless you can learn from a fool or a wise man, you have hardly learned at all. Which kind of means that, you know.
Yeah.
You can't be too superior to feel like you can't learn from a fool.
I had an experience when I lived in an apartment in my when my son was little. I think it might have even been before I was pregnant or around the time I got pregnant with him in that apartment building. And there was a woman in our building who was sort of frumpy-ish, didn't seem to be all that bright or there kind of thing. And the assumption, of course, that I automatically made because of everything that I had known at the time was that. And I went and had some tea, I think, in her apartment. And she started talking about her out-of-body travels and seeing the world from space and how amazing that was. And I just sort of sat there and I thought, this is a good lesson right here. That just because she has this one particular body she's in this particular presentation, I jumped to a conclusion that's completely erroneous. And this woman had some amazing insights into things that I needed to hear. And so I think that's sort of what Coyote means by that. But anyway, yes. So Angela says, oh, I like that.
Yeah, you know, you can't peg one as bad or the other as good, and it all is relative to your situation.
Angela says, you need to know both sides of the spectrum. I'll teach you something. Yeah. And it's true. It's like sometimes you don't know for sure where that last piece of information you might need for something is going to come from. And if you're closed off to hearing it because you've got a judgment about the source, well, then I guess you're not going to get the information you need. Bep says, I would say when one is willing to be truly open and learn everything, starts to be a reflection in life. Yeah.
I agree with that, and there's a lot of depth to that statement, actually, if you think about it. Yeah.
Madeline says, love.
Hearts
Hi,
are
Madeline.
always good.
Yep. Yeah, so, yeah, the, all that stuff. is interesting anyway. But thank you guys for some of the questions you've already asked today. It's always good to help me get out of my own brain sometimes. I'm sitting here playing with this rock now. Now that I picked it up. Like, yeah, it's my happy rock. I like this rock. I lost it for a while. Madeline says, I love you. Thank you, Madeline. We appreciate that. We do what we can to be as genuine as we can, muddling along in the process, not knowing everything. Trying to be helpful. But yeah, so Angela says, wow, it's almost 4 p.m. already. I guess that means she is in mountain time, because it's almost 3 o'clock here. Angela says, a good rock is a good friend. Yeah, and unless you lose them accidentally, you can carry them with you, unless they're too big. In that case, you have to go visit them where they are. Angela says, having pet rocks is a legit thing. Balloonhead says, hi, happy Sunday. Hi, Balloonhead. Thank you for joining. Yes, so Angela says, I am in mountain time. Yes. Good guess on my part. Unless you were like 12 hours away or 13 hours away on the other side of the planet. We had that one young man who popped in from India one day. He says, is this real? And we're like, yeah, we're actually here talking live. And
Yeah, I think you said it was like 4 in the morning there. Or
exactly.
Like that.
That's what I was saying. Pillars of Light says, I think objectification is the real poison in the spiritual community now. Yeah. Ruth says 6 p.m. here. So that means Eastern time. Are you in Florida? I think you asked me a question on Facebook about protection for your house. And sorry if I outed you being in Florida.
Was that something you need to worry about?
I don't know.
Don't out me.
Don't out me. I'm in Florida. But you were safe, so it was okay. But oh my. And Ian is not very happy about having the biggest hurricane to ever hit Florida named after him.
Well, you know, that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Angela says, and gatekeeping too. Yeah. No, I'm in Michigan. Okay, never mind then. Good. I'm glad you're safe anyway, wherever you are. Yeah, gatekeeping is a weird word because it used to be a positive thing. I mean, it used to mean like the idea the gatekeepers in ritual and so forth were there to make sure that people who weren't supposed to be at the ritual didn't come in and people weren't out, misbehaving during the process. But then some egos started getting in charge of that, and it became more like a militia kind of energy to it. So,
well, for what it's worth, though, if you put it into speculative masonry, for example, which is not, I don't want to get too far off the subject, but speculative masonry has always had gatekeepers that they use that are always armed with swords and things, but they're symbolic. They're not actually supposed to stab somebody, but they're supposed to perform the same purpose. Keep people who shouldn't be there away.
So Angela says, maybe since it has your name, you can send it back out to sea. They gave you power over it. Oh, if only it worked that way. At least it's on its way out at this point. It's dumped all the stuff it's got. Except it's going to rain some more, I guess, on the East Coast. So, but wow. Yeah, that was something else. So the Adventures of Reiki says Fog Mistress instead of Gatekeeper. Yeah, I don't know. Vanessa V says, what do you mean by objectification in the spiritual community at Pillar of Light? Let's see what he has to say when we get there. Anna says, as a kid, I would collect crystals and put salt in doorways, talk to trees and things like that. No knowledge or teaching of woodcraft at the time. Interesting how I found my way to this path. It is always interesting. I did all kinds of stuff like that when I was a kid too. Although not the salt in the doorways, but yeah, talking to trees and rocks and making friends.
Yeah, and that could be an indicator
spirits.
of past life interest in the same direction, of course.
Yeah, some of the past lives I've remembered were definitely in that vein. I have a group of them that were along the lines of this one, in that I remember being a priestess to Isis twice, I think, in Egypt, and I remember being, what do they call them, at the Oracle of Delphi. I remembered that one day when I was up north. And that was before Apollo came on the scene, so it was prior to Apollo. I was very confused when I learned about it, and they talked about Apollo. I'm like, what? You know, things like that. But yeah. So you can have groupings of different kinds of things. Moonfire Dawn says, Ian, I thought about you when that hurricane came. My buddy Matt wasn't too happy when that happened to him. Well, you know, it's about time men had to face this. Because women have had to face this for a long time now. We were getting tired of being the only ones who had their names associated with horrible destruction. So, sorry guys. So Angela says, I make bowls of salad with leaves and flowers and crystals and would leave them under bushes in the garden. Yeah, I did too, yeah. I did all sorts of stuff. I liked climbing trees a lot and sitting in the trees and looking at people. Joy says, ha, I would love a storm named after me. Angela says, and once came back and found 2 cute spotted toads in the bowl, one big one and one little one. Well, you made them happy.
I don't know, Joy. I think your name is too positive to be able to name a storm after you. They
Hurricane
might not,
Joy.
Hurricane Joy, yeah. I don't know. They might not.
Their brains might explode trying to think of the. Yeah, they would be like, no, we can't call it that. It's sort of like Hurricane Peace or something. It's like, not happening. I don't know how they figure that out and decide what names they're going to use.
Probably just pull it out of there.
I don't know. They probably have a computer program now. Duel says, me too. I talked to animals, collected rocks, still do. Never thought much of it. I was just a strange child. Who knew? Well, yeah. We did, apparently. You knew. You just didn't know what to call it. So Vanessa says, oh, that's so cute at Angela. Ruth laughs. Angela says, they were so cute. Yes, the little frogs or toads climbing trees. Yes. Yes, I loved the climbing of the trees. Moonfire Dawn says, I was witchy as a kid too. Rarely now do I read a magic book without feeling like I'm remembering. My childhood quirks make more sense now. Absolutely. Well, yeah, when I finally found like Starhawk's book, it was like reading my brain. I was just like, wow, I'm not totally alone and I'm not completely and totally weird. Like, Cynthia says, storms are a total joy to me. Well, probably not if you're in the middle of the flood. But, yes, I like the energy of storms, too. Joy says, I saw a quote I liked. Beware the storm, they whispered. I am the storm, I replied. I think I saw that somewhere recently.
I rather like that, though.
I think I saw that on Facebook, as a matter of fact.
Oh.
Yeah, with a witch with thunderbolts or lightning coming out of her fingers or something like that. Quietly. Angela says, I remember also when my grandfather found a dead butterfly, I stared and stared at the butterfly. Then when I moved the grass away from it after several hours of sitting there, its wings twitched. I reached and touched it and it flew away. Cool. Luna says, I couldn't dispose of items in public dustbins, garbage pails as a kid, as I felt they had my energy on them, especially if it was my hair or broken fingernails. Didn't realize they were tag locks then. Yeah, interesting that you knew that that was connected directly to you. Angela says, I don't know to this day whether it was asleep or what, but it was so strange and hung around after the butterfly. Yeah. You never know, but it doesn't matter, does it? I mean, butterflies are often associated with the dead, spirits coming back to visit, and saying hi to relatives, and from below, what I don't know what I'm saying. You know what I mean. And different people have different ideas of how a loved one might come to visit them. I just know butterflies are definitely one of them, and there's some Native American lore where the butterfly tree is butterflies is the human souls come from the butterfly tree.
That's not one I'm familiar with.
I saw that years ago, so for all I know, someone made it up, and I don't know that.
I mean, maybe not. There's a lot of tribes out there, so.
Angela says, no, it doesn't, and yeah, it was a monarch, and they're said to carry spirits to heaven. For some people, apparently the cardinal is a messenger from the other side. I've watched a couple of programs where people talk about what they see as messages coming from the other side, and butterflies, another one. Um, yeah, I think one of our people actually rescued a bunch of monarch eggs and hatched them and let them go. Seems to me I remember reading that on my page or something. Linda says, Angela, that happened to my son at work recently. A dead butterfly had been in the window for a few days. He touched it and it flickered into life and flew away. Ah. Hannah says, the robin is common over here in the UK. Vanessa V says, in Mexico, hummingbirds are messengers. Yeah, so every region probably has their own animals and insects and things like that that are said to come and be messengers for spirits. Canary says, hello, hello. Hi, Canary. Nice for you to join us and say hi. But I think, like with that, with the idea of birds and insects coming to give messages, the thing is it weird and unusual and atypical? I mean, it seemed pretty clear that the butterfly is connected to my daughter, because she had a butterfly land on her when we were at a gathering, the medicine wheel ceremonies I went to, and and it landed on her, wouldn't leave, and she kept trying to get rid of it, and she came over very upset because this butterfly was stuck to her finger. I told her that it was a special spirit messenger and it had come to give her a message, and she needed to just sit with it and try to listen to it. And she did for over a half an hour. And she was pretty young at that point, so that was pretty amazing. But since then, she can just go pick up any butterfly that's out there. And she was on her way home from school one day and telling a friend, I think she was like in the 7th or 8th grade at that point, about her experience with the butterfly, and the friend scoffed and like, yeah, that didn't happen. No one can do that. And she says, really? Well, see that butterfly over there? Let me show you. And she went and picked it up, and her friend freaked out. Just weird to me. People freak out when you show them you can do what you say you can and that you're not a liar. Oh well. So Canary said, Luna say what? Wow. Cynthia says, definitely not diminishing people's loss with floods, but I struggle to hate nature's will even when we are in peril. Gaia will what she will.
Well,
this is true.
and that's exactly. There's no evil to the nature. You can't really hate it because it's not personal.
It's not personal.
It just is.
Hurricanes are our air. This is our air conditioning for cooling the planet, and the reason we're getting bigger and more is because our planet's getting warmer, and it needs to be cooled off. So yeah, it's a natural reaction. I totally agree with that. Luna says, at Canary, I wondered if he might have been tripping at the time. Luna says at Canary, oh, I said that. Vanessa V says, well, I've read that birds and flying insects tend to be connected to the spiritual realm because they are seen as being in a liminal space between earth and sky. That could be one reason. We had a hummingbird that came flying into the van when we were on the side of the road just before Ian saw a coyote run across the road.
True.
And it just came in and hovered and just sort of looked for a bit and then went out and then came back in and did it again and just said, hey, and then left. So it is pretty interesting. Angela says, yeah, it's weird how weirded out they get. Yeah, people. Angela says, earthquakes and storms are Mama Gaia's way of getting comfortable, I say. She has to toss and turn and reposition. We're sitting on top of her, according to some mythos, causing her pain. Well, without earthquakes and volcanoes and storms and everything else, there'd be no life here at all. So yeah, we need them. We might not like them depending on where we are, but they're necessary. It's a part of being in a biosphere. So Cynthia says, yep. Angela says, so it would make sense she would shift. I was actually talking to my sister in Virginia about earthquakes the other day because She's not supposed to have earthquakes in Virginia, and she had one, and she was very unhappy with it. And we were talking about the whole notion that until you're in an earthquake, you believe that the earth is solid, and it's not. You're floating on a bunch of lava. It's like earth is not solid. It just seems to be more solid than anything else. It's very annoying when you discover that that's not true, and you've thought that all along. So Lucy Flucker said, I had a bird fly into my apartment back in mid-February of this year, and a giant moth fly in about a month ago. All right. Shay says, hello all visiting during my lunch break. Good to see you here, Siofra and Ian. Hi, Shay.
Hi, Shay.
Thank you for joining us on your lunch. Yeah, it's always interesting. Vanessa V says a volcano eruption could be to the earth what a sneeze is for us.
Some sneezes more than others, but I agree.
Canary says, I had a bird fly in and out of my flat a year ago, come to think of it. I've had a bird fly into my space whenever I've been close to moving. I like the faces, yes. Interesting. Maybe so. Angela says it's got solid ground, skin, magma, blood, the core is its heart. Earth is alive. Yes, Earth is alive. And it's very hot in the middle. Luna says, I was referring to thinking my son's statement about bringing a days-old dead butterfly to life sounded a bit suspect when I said he might have been tripping. Well, we figured. Lucy says, wow, I heard a bird in your home symbolizes massive change approaching. That would seem to be true in her case. It's just sort of interesting how nature finds different ways to communicate with us depending on our belief systems. I think it adapts. The universe adapts to figure out what are the things that work.
Well, I agree. That's I think it's all very individual, and everybody has to figure out your own as far as omens and signs and things like that.
Angela says, I remember having wasps buzzing near me and saying, please go away, nothing personal, but I might be allergic to you. And they put some distance between them and me a moment later. I wish they listened to me, but yes, that's awesome.
Yeah, I tried making friends with spiders so they would leave me alone, but it didn't work. The more friendly I got with them, the more they just wanted to climb on me at night, so I gave them the boot. I said that was it. No more making friends with spiders inside the house. They just have to stay outside.
Boundaries.
Yep.
Need to have boundaries. Canary says that, Lucy, I didn't know that. Now it makes sense. Well, yeah, you said it right out at the start that every time you were getting ready to move, a bird would fly into your house. So, yeah. Angela says, my sister was staring at me in shock. Lucy says, so true. I love looking for meaning all around me. Shay says that, Ian, I think that's true, that omens can mean different things to different people. Yeah, depending on cultural, influences and personality traits and experiences
they have to have
things.
Meaning for the person, and that meaning is going to be based on his life experiences. There's just,
Canary says, I got some healing yesterday. It was good. The woman stopped and sat next to me, and I kept my eyes closed for a further 10 minutes as it felt like her hands were still on me. I just thought I'd share. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's a good sign when that happens. Angela says, spiders like our warmth. They're cuddlers. Madeline says, gatekeeper is the main spirit guide, the head honcho, navigate other spirits. I don't think that's what people were talking about when they talked about gatekeepers. They were talking about people with egos. But yeah, that would be a different kind of gatekeeper. Canary says, I've had reactions like then when I am energy healing, but still manage to be shocked when it happened to me. Well, yeah, I mean, it's always a surprise. When I did my Reiki initiation, I had that. She wasn't there anymore, but I could clearly feel hands still on me. And I think that's a definite indication that something is actually happening.
It's taking time for that energy to penetrate through and get into you. And yeah, I'd say it's definitely a good sign that there's something there to get through.
Yeah, every so often I have an angel show up at my office that it puts its hands on top of my hands when I'm working on somebody. It's always interesting when that happens. It's not every time. It's just, whatever. I don't know how they decide that, but every so often it just comes. So Luna says there are over 2,000 spiders on average in every house. Just don't get to see them all. I'm glad I made friends with them, although Jonathan definitely doesn't agree with me. Yeah, they're an acquired taste, maybe for some people. Angela says, no, I meant people with egos, but I didn't know gatekeeper meant spirit guide who's helping others talk. Yeah, that can mean that. So, like, depending on your definition of it, so, like, with me, Moida would be my gatekeeper in the sense that she is always the first spirit that I would channel. And sometimes I would channel other spirit beings, but mostly it was her. And yeah, so a lot of mediums have what they call a gatekeeper, who is the spirit guide that's on the other side that makes sure nothing negative gets through. And they're sort of in charge of who gets to come and who goes and that kind of thing. I think that's what they're talking about. Same word, different meaning. Dee Dee says, Siofra, I'm starting my test soon. Any quick tips on crystals or rituals to help me manifest a good outcome? Thank you so much for all your videos. I love them. You're welcome. I would bring a crystal that helps your mind be more sharp, whatever that works for you. Energy, like carnelian, to try and keep yourself energized. Citrine to keep yourself alert. Some mercury talisman. Cinnamon oil. A cinnamon stick. Cinnamon seems to be a good one for mental clarity. A smell of cinnamon.
That type of thing, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But make it specific to you, and it doesn't have to be very big. It can be small. You can use a clear quartz crystal and charge it up to do whatever you want too. You don't have a specific crystal ready to go for something like that. Balloon has said that's so sweet. Mary's and Bep says, Dot? Canary says, oh yeah, I have a gatekeeper, but I didn't call him that. Then it says, after my Reiki healing, I was able to feel parts of my body I was never aware of previously for a couple of days afterwards. It was amazing. Yeah, having that mind-body connection is really important. And I was explaining how yoga works to help develop the mind-body connection to my granddaughter the other day, trying to tell her that, like, the corpse pose in yoga is supposed to become the most active pose that you do, even though on the outside it looks like you're doing absolutely nothing. And that's what you're doing, is you're really delving into that mind-body connection and observing your body and moving your energy around and seeing where things go, where things are blocked and so forth, and really evolving that kind of intuition about your body. And that way, if something's not working for you, you can figure it out quicker. You know what the signals are that tell you, hey, this is not good for me, or hey, this is fantastic, I like it, let's do more of that. So Angela says, I have two now, realizing this, two ancestors, but I didn't realize what they were doing. I thought they were just chatty with those who come by. Ha! Yeah, cool. Dee Dee says, thanks, I'll be sure to try it out. Mary says, I felt high days after my first Reiki initiation, was disappointed when the after effects stopped. I'm pretty sure you meant after, not father, so I'm correcting that. Well, that's the thing, is we don't stay in the same state. We're constantly in moving in flux. So, yeah, it's normal for us to get out of those states.
Well, plus which a lot of times your body would be you'd be overstressed. And that's one of the things Barton mentioned specifically, is if you pull any energy into your body, when you're done with it, get rid of it, what's left. You pull in an element or something like that, make sure you discharge it so that it doesn't wind some part of your system up. Keep working there where you don't want it to. Grounding is always a good thing.
Balloonhead says, do you notice any particular angels help you heal more than most? Also, how do you perceive angels? Like, how do they look and feel to you? Okay, so I have two guardian angels that have been with me since I was little that I've always been able to sense. And they would, like, sleep with me when I went to bed at night, trying to comfort me because of the terror of my childhood and what was going on in my house. Um, so they couldn't do anything to stop it, but they were there just to try and keep me from losing all hope, I'm assuming, to let me know I wasn't alone, that there was something else out there. And when I see angels, I see their brightness, there's a light in them, and I see their wings, and they're often floating. I don't usually see them like standing on the ground in particular. I saw them when I was young in church. They gathered in churches when people were singing and so forth, and I found that very confusing because I could see them and they were all bright and shiny and pretty and everything, and all the people below were all sad and crying and not happy, and I couldn't understand how they could feel that way with that happening there. I don't think of angels as being belonging to a specific religion. I think religions have co-opted them, but I think that they've always existed and that they exist on a somewhat different plane than they have their own kind of plane, I guess, in the spirit world or whatever that they're from. And not everyone has one. The one that comes to my office, um, I feel it standing behind me. It's like a presence and an energy and a pillar of energy that just sort of shows up, and then I can feel its hands coming around me, and it puts its hands on my hands, and then I can feel the energy going through my hands into the person. I don't know its name. I don't think I know any of their names, actually. They're not named, I guess, or they've never told me their names, or I've never asked for their names. I don't know. Um, but they're definitely a specific type of being. They're completely different than earth spirits and like nature spirits and fae and stuff like that. They're their own group too. So I don't know. I guess that's about all I can say on that. And sometimes when I do distance work on people, I see their, if they have a guardian angel, I see their angel. Um, and if they have a, like an ancestor, then I see their ancestor. So it depends. Um, okay, Vanessa V says, oh, well, never, I've been doing yoga, had explained the corpse pose that way. It's always just relaxation time. Okay, so this is what you're supposed to do in the corpse pose if no one's explained it to you. First thing you do is you do the tensing of your muscles and relaxing them. That, on a physiological level, helps to reset your neutral for your muscles. Because muscles, if they're in a tightened state and not being used, think that they're relaxed. And this way you're resetting the relaxed state to a more relaxed state. So you're going to like tense them all up and then let them go. After you're done doing every muscle in your body all the way up to your face and your head and stuff like that, then you're supposed to observe your breath, which is very difficult to do because the first thing you want to do when you observe your breath is to change it. And the trick is not to change it, is to be the observer. So that's a form of meditation. After you've done that, then you go into your spine, into your the base of your spine, and you try to become aware of the energy in your spine and work your way all the way up to the top of your head and just sort of observe, is the energy moving? Is it plugged? How does it feel? Am I having difficulty moving from this spot to another spot? Did I like stay aware of the, there were these two chakras that I don't remember doing. So what happened? Why did I lose awareness of them when I was coming through? And then all the way up to the top of your head. That is the corpse pose, the way it's supposed to be done. So now you know. That's how I would teach it in my class. Canary says, and holy, and forgot the name of my Reiki guide. That's really not good. I'm not getting a name again when I ask. I think my teacher wrote it down. I'm embarrassed to ask. Lucy says, what's a Reiki initiation? Reiki is a form of healing. You have to have someone who's already a Reiki master tune you in. Canary looks like she already answered that question for you.
Yeah, they put some symbols in your aura, among other things.
But it's an initiatory kind of thing. It connects you to a stream of energy that these particular spirit beings, angelic beings, have agreed that when they see someone who has these symbols in their aura and they use those symbols to do healing, they will lend their energy to the process and channel energy for healing into whatever. so it's a specific group of angels amongst all the angels. Let's see. Bep says, do posts get removed if they're too big? I just wrote something and didn't come through. I don't know. I don't know either. Sometimes weird things happen with the internet.
No, they don't come. They won't come through if they're too big. I found that out myself. Yeah.
Okay, so break them up,
Yeah.
I guess. Canary says, I have predictive text on. I need to turn it off. Lucy, Reiki attunements where a Reiki master attunes you to the energy of Reiki. Vanessa V says, there is a limit of words you can write in the chat, so you need to divide it into more messages. Canary says, I said a name when I got my attunement. Yes. Angela says, my nephew, when he was tiny, saw an angel. The dog was barking very aggressively, then stopped quite suddenly. It was across the road. He told me, Auntie, did you see the angel? He told the dog no. He's beautiful. Cool. It's always good. Children see spirits much more easily than adults. Lewell says, do you think that if a person had difficulty being born, for instance, born not breathing, needed revival, would have a more natural connection to the other side, or does it even matter? It's a possibility. There are some psychics that say that that's what happened to them, or they became psychic when they had a near-death experience, and it opened up that kind of pathway for them. I don't know that it's absolutely essential, though, and I think it's the nature of the spirit that's inhabiting the body more than the physical thing that happens to the body that matters. Like, I didn't have that happen to me, but I was born different and weird, so it's gonna, like everything else, there's a continuum. There's going to be variables that we're not aware of, and there's no one answer to anything. That's like always the case. Angela says, I was happy crying because I couldn't feel it, but I could feel it, but I didn't see anything. Well, that's awesome, Angela. Lucy says, thanks, Canary. Pep says, recently I heard that hugging and connecting with pine trees is not so favorable as with some other trees. Any thoughts on that?
I have a thought on that. Native Americans would often take the tips of the needles and rub themselves with them, particularly to get energy from the pine needles. So again, I think that they wouldn't agree with that.
No.
And I don't.
And the pine tree actually gave Ian something to do to help with that seasonal affective disorder.
Yes.
By using the pine essential oil from the needles. Got to be careful with it though, because it will dissolve plastic.
Well, yeah, you just want to not overdo it. You just take a small bit, Probably be toxic if you drank the whole thing.
Well, yeah, essential oils can be dangerous.
A drop in a glass of water or a glass of tea isn't too bad.
So Lucy says, thanks, Siofra. You're welcome. Balloonhead says, that was really insightful. Thank you. I can only sense them kind of filling the room and making me feel warm and giggly sometimes. Well, that's a good response, too. Canary said it, Lucy, welcome. Vanessa V says, thank you. I think that's a great exercise, yoga or not. Yoga has become so popular, but more as a sport and not as an energetic practice, at least here. True. Talking about moving energy, do you have any videos on Kundalini ready? Sorry if I didn't spell it correctly. You did spell it correctly, and we do have some videos on Kundalini. I'm not sure how many that we have at the moment, but yeah. Kundalini, the main, grounding exercise, the sacred tree exercise, is also a Kundalini exercise, clearing the chakras and raising the energy from the earth and bringing the energy down from the sky, mixing the two together, which is one of the practices that people who do Kundalini are doing. Just a little bit.
Yeah, it's actually
safer.
It's actually a huge subject when you get into it. There's a lot on it. If people are more interested, we could always do more in-depth videos on that.
Angela says, pine trees poke a little, but they have a very nice, gentle energy. And Lula says, yes, pine needle tea helps with bad mood in winter. Yes, absolutely. And you heard that directly from the pine.
Yeah, right from pine tree. So that doesn't happen all the time. It's not like plants talk to me all the time, but it did happen that once.
Yes. So sometimes plants talk to us, and we sometimes listen. Ah. Angela says, very protective and seem to like sharing space, at least the ones around here, which is good. Canary says, I know someone that says they ask permission to hug a tree or something like take things of a plant, but where I lost the thing. Yeah, I went down instead of up. That's the problem. Okay. I know someone that says they ask permission to hug a tree or something like take things off a plant, but is a gardener, and I asked, do you ask the bushes you cut for permission? Didn't speak much after. I like to warn them. I don't always ask permission. I warn them about something that's coming, if something needs to be pruned, and it's just like, this is something that's going to happen. Every time I see them, I think at them and tell them what's going to happen so that when it happens, they're not surprised.
I think, yeah, being friendly with the plants is a good idea, even if you need to do something, yeah, have that respect, and I think that you'll get rewarded from the plant kingdom as much as they can.
So Bep says, I work a lot with pine trees, so it didn't make sense from my experience. But I was curious if there might be any logic behind it. Anyhow, thanks.
I haven't heard of any logic to
your
that
experience is the more
yeah.
important piece of this puzzle anyway.
Yep.
And someone else's idea of what your experience ought to have been has absolutely no foundation to change the experience that you had, is my opinion. So Angela says, I have a yes or no system with my local trees. I'll ask permission aloud if I need leaves, needles, or blossoms. If it comes off easy, it's yes. If it doesn't come off easy, it's no. Or come off at all, yes. That can be good. Canary says, for once I wasn't being sarcastic. I was genuinely curious how that worked. Well,
no,
good.
it didn't think there was sarcasm there.
Yeah. Angela says, I stop pulling if I feel resistance. Maybe they thought hugging them was bad because they're a bit sharp. Who knows where they heard it from? Someone may have said this to them and they just took it in and accepted it without looking at it. And that's the part of spiritual evolution.
Yeah, and again, it's probably somewhere culture based, originally from somewhere, but yeah.
Or someone who thought they were extremely psychic and got the information directly from a pine tree and were wrong. Or maybe it was just that one pine tree that didn't like to be hugged. I don't know. So Luna says, thanks all, blessings for the week ahead. Thank you, Luna. Thank you for popping in and participating. It's always good to find out we're not alone, being strange and weird and whatever. Yeah. Bep says, Fae are evil, pine trees are evil. Boo. Yeah. Boo. Everything you don't like is evil. Boo. Canary says, the pine trees don't claim her. Yeah, that's for sure. They're just like, okay. I know, it's 3 minutes. According to my timer, you have a couple minutes. It's just about time to wrap it up.
Yours never coincides exactly with mine.
Never? Okay. But hey, if we're a few minutes off,
that's okay.
No, we won't drop dead from that, so that's a good thing. But yeah, thank you guys for coming along and sitting with us and asking us questions and making us think and
inciting some conversation.
That's right. It's one of those things I value these kinds of conversations because it's hard to find people you can talk to without tripping them into some weird mental state that's now they're defensive and they're going to go on the attack and never speak to you again or something like that, I guess. Lucy says, thanks for being here. This was so lovely. You're welcome, Lucy. Have a good week, Lulu says. Thank you. It'll be a busy one, but we shall get through it. Vanessa V says, thank you. All right. So yeah, it's conversation. Real conversation is rare. Value it wherever you find it. So happy Mercury's no longer retrograde. Hopefully everything will open up for you. You'll all have a good week. And we'll see you next Sunday. So Thank you, one and all.